outcome. There'll be differences of opinion on things like gay marriage, understand that, accept that, but we actually were very clear about our position on that prior to the election as well. In these practical areas of discrimination, we said we'd do this. We've now identified all the offending pieces of legislation. They'll be dealt with in the second half of the year.
Prime Minister, here's an email question. Hang on a sec. Here's an email question sent to us from Luke in Victoria I found earlier. Specifically, what is your personal objection to gay marriage?
Well, frankly, what I think or don't think is not relevant. What is relevant is what we took to the last election. What we said in the last election was three things. No, let me go through to it.
I think your personal views probably are relevant, aren't they? That's what he's asking for.
I answered that on Rove, I think.
Okay, but this audience and this questioner would like to know what your personal views are.
Well, I'll go through our policies first, and that's the critical thing. No, it's true. It's true. I mean, you can either... You're elected on the basis of what you put as policies to the community, okay? And they were, one, to remove all these items of legislation, which we've just referred to, and we're doing that. Secondly, we said we would have a nationally consistent a relationship register for people in same-sex partnerships or in other forms of partnerships outside marriage. That, for example, is what the Victorian government has done, the Tasmanian government has done, and now the ACT government as well. And the Attorney-General is working with the other states as well. The third position is that we put very clearly before the election is that we have argued consistently that marriage itself is between a man and a woman, and therefore, when it comes to another form of legal recognition of relationships which compromise the legal definition of marriage, we would not support that. We said that before the election. We were very clear about it. We were criticised for it. I've been criticised for it then and criticised for it now, but very clear-cut about the position.
OK, we've got another question in the audience from Gareth Gillam.
This is linked to this issue.
Sure.
I've been with my partner, my boyfriend, for like nearly 2 years. We have support of our families, our friends, our whole community. Why can't we get married? What's the problem?
The Marriage Act in Australia is very explicit about it being between a man and a woman. By the way, you asked before, but hang on. Well, can I say that is the position of my party, that is the position I hold personally, to answer the other question. But when it comes to other forms of relationships, same-sex relationships, the first and most important thing you've got to do is to remove the discriminations we talked about before. The second is to have a nationally consistent set of rules and regulations when it comes to relationship recognition. That does not exist at present. That's what we're working on. But on the question of marriage itself, that's our view. We've been very plain about it. It's in our party's platform, has been for a long time, and I don't propose that we'll be changing it soon.
I've got another question in the audience from John McCann. John McCann? Down here.
Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the German theologian who you described as the man you most admired in the 20th century, thought there should be no division between the kingdom of God and the kingdom of the state. How much do you think the kingdom of God should influence the law in the areas of gay marriage, abortion and the family?
Well, I think I just answered that question before in terms of you're elected on the question of the secular positions and policies you put to an electorate before an election, and your obligation then is to give effect to them in government. That's what we have done. And the question of Bonhoeffer, why do I admire Bonhoeffer? There was Bonhoeffer in the 40s in Germany in a respectable and paid position within the church. He decided to go and stand up for the Jews, was thrown into jail and was executed. That's why I admire Bonhoeffer. He had enormous guts in dealing with the Nazi state. And I think a lot of people who have looked at his model around the world say, well, if I had half the guts that that guy had, then I'd be going somewhere.
OK. All right. First of all, here's another email question on an ethical issue from Ranjan Abasekura from Whyalla in South Australia. And I'll read his question. As a publicised admirer of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, do you have any qualms about maintaining the Christmas Island detention centre?
Well, Christmas Island, first of all, unlike Nauru and Papua New Guinea, is part of the Commonwealth of Australia. Can I just make that point? Hang on. What did this government do upon its election? It abolished the Pacific Solution. It closed the facilities at Nauru and on Manus Island. On top of that, we've taken a further position on temporary protection visas. And on top of that, we've civilised the entire migration law of the country. Now, are people going to agree with every element of what we have in terms of an orderly migration system? No. Are people going to say you shouldn't have any form of detention if people violate the migration laws of the country? Well, some people will say that.
What do you think Dietrich Bonhoeffer would say?
Well, can I just say that is, impossible to know. I don't know if Dietrich...
Fair answer.
I don't think Dietrich would have said Christmas Island. Now, let me give that some thought, Dietrich was saying bunch of Nazis, big problem with, my Jewish neighbours disappearing into concentration camps. I think that's what he would have thought about. I think the systematic annihilation of 6 million Jews forms a slightly different category.
Let's go to Morteza Purvadi. Morteza Purvadi.
Well, I came to Australia by boat as an asylum seeker. I was in Woomera, Port Hedland, Villawood for 4 years, and it drove me mad. I've tried to commit suicide 5 times. Why don't you stop detention centers for asylum seekers and don't put children in detention, mandatory detention?
You may be surprised to know this, but in opposition, we were very clear-cut in our policy, and there'd be no children in detention. And that was a policy we adopted at least a couple of years ago. There are no children in detention now, okay? That's our policy. It's the law of the Commonwealth of Australia. So let's just be clear about the facts in terms of what's changed. I think the other thing which needs to be very clear here is what is our policy when it comes to detention? It is that if someone violates the migration laws of Australia, and for that matter other states that they may travel to, you need to have an enforcement system. But when it comes to asylum seekers, what we have said is our stated position of policy is to process 90% of cases in 90 days, not to allow people to languish for years and years and years, and send them off to Manus Island and send them off to Nauru or to Woomera or to places like that. That is demonstrably inhuman because of the absence of any time limit, the absence of any effective external scrutiny of the process, and particularly in terms of the impact on children. We campaigned against that in opposition. We have honoured to the letter that which we said in opposition in terms of the policies which Chris Evans, the Migration Minister, has implemented in the last 5 months.
I'll just take one more question on this. There's a lady down the front here who'd like to get in on this discussion. We'll just bring the microphone down to you. Just here in the lady second from the right in the front row.
It seems like the discussions revolve around human rights, addressing human rights. Prime Minister, my question to you is, do you think Australia will have a Charter of Rights in the near future?
Well, there is a huge and legitimate debate to be had in Australia about what we do in juggling the challenges of, for example, terrorism on the one hand and the legitimate freedoms of our people on the other. What we've seen across all Western democracies is a series of counter-terrorism laws instituted since September 11, which have had an impact on overall civil liberties. That's the truth of it. Let's not pretend it's something different. And the question which therefore arises is, are the legal protections for our citizens therefore adequate against that challenge? This is a debate which the nation must have. And when it comes to the possibility of a Charter of Rights, that's something which has to be debated, examined, and to be tested in the public mind. I don't have a definitive response to that. All I know is, and our party is committed to, having such a charter properly debated and examined, and let's form a seasoned judgment then. But let's be clear about it. The reason why such a debate has become necessary of itself is because things have shifted and changed since